21, Great One. Location, Solar System. Third POV. Oh, what is this? Though Calicitus, he took another bite out of what little remained of Space Godzilla. It has been some time since he made Godzilla trip in midair by inverting gravity around one of his feet and the fall, in front of the whole world. He remembered the smugness that oozed off the radioactive lizard before he ruined the other alpha moment. The king of the monsters must have already become a joke on the internet. Calicitus will also partake in it, while at it he will as his god persona, to ask useless but philosophical questions to the humans such as, can one know that one knows nothing? His 4 eyes were transfixed on what looked like a beluga in general body shape that let out a sky blue light behind its tail and flippers. He was confused before his whole body flared up with excitement. The space whale swam in the direction of the strange beluga. Calicitus instinctively emitted low repeated clicks traversing through the gravitons. A barely audible click came back in response. Calicitus made a portal in front of the beluga, who swam right through it, effectively moving it in front of him. He looked at it. It seemed it was extremely old, at least it looked old, and on the border of decaying. It was small compared to him. He reckoned it should be 10 average human males in length. Also, it was a she. The young whale asked with immense curiosity, his eyes shining, "What are you?" "It's an honor that I can greet the young Great One and last of the Greats One. I'm of the last Astrodelphii. We are one of the numerous races shaped and brought to life by the Greats One, to serve the Greats One," the old Astrodelphus explained with respect. Its voice was feminine, voice was aged, and full of reverence, respect, and for him and his species. She seemed immensely relieved. He could instinctively tell that by the subtle variation in her expression through her fins, flipper, beak, the weak heartbeat of her used heart, and overall body language. Very different from a human, as it should be. Continue, Calicitus requested. He detected no falsehood in the Astrodelphus words. He also felt a connection, very much one-sided, with him in control. He still took everything with a grain of salt. Though, it confirmed that he was alone, expected but unpleasant news nonetheless. If she was right, she might think it was the truth. Spoiler, she was right. And he was still surprised by the presence of the space beluga. He didn't expect to meet something like this when he jumped to the Kuiper belt. Then she made the equivalent of a deep bow. She waited for the Great One words and took the cue of the silent Calicitus. She spoke, "I have long since forgotten my name, but never my purpose given to me by, I demand pardon in advance for my bluntness, your deceased mother, Lady Terracetus, and Miss Io, her friend as far as I know. She is currently still comatose on the biggest moon of the last gaseous planet of your mother's solar system, no, your solar system. Where I and my pod were hibernating until your alpha call woke the last one of us still alive. And I'm the only one that made it that far," she said with great sadness in her voice. "So this is my mom's name, so this was her solar system. Did she help or create life on Earth? Or the planet name and here are just a coincidence? Probably not. Maybe I should also rename Mars since it's my planet and the name given by humans to it may not be adequate anymore," the whale pondered, knowingly brushing off the fact that it also meant that most lifeforms on her Earth are technical if we look from afar, his distant brothers and sisters. This also means that he is the owner of the solar system by the space beluga words. Well, that's certainly nice and all, but he believed it wouldn't be that easy. For Godzilla being alpha of Earth, the space whale will take the position, but not by winning in a fight that would be too simple, because Boom Godzilla is now a second moon, and he will make the old radioactive lizard abdicate with his methods. Now he also didn't know who this Io was and didn't care at the moment. She was a stranger, though from what the nameless Astrodelphus told she should be on Triton, the biggest of Neptune's 14 natural satellites. He will see when he wants to. His brief thought about everything she just said was finished, and he noticed that her left flippers were starting to become dark energy, making them progressively disappear. The Astrodelphus noticed his gaze and self-deprecating click. "Oh, this is nothing but the consequences of playing too much with the forbidden time. Especially going into the future, the reverse ends with the destruction of the timeline, and this one is unique. Thanks to Miss Io's aura we could have survived this long. Anyways, my life is not important. My time is counted," the old Astrodelphus said casually, visibly resigned to her fate. even if she was going through an unimaginable amount of pain. She swam closer to Calicitas, but the latter didn't stop her. He was studying how her body, mind, and soul were slowly growing into the energy responsible for expanding the universe. He felt pity for her. He wanted to help her, but he was powerless in this situation, so he didn't and took advantage of this by studying what was happening. Her forehead/melon touched the area between his two sets of eyes. He felt a tendril going through his overly protected mind, but he let it pass. He closed his eyes as the warm flux of information started to trickle down his three brains. It was about how to shape the blue energy he emitted and pulsed. It was just like he hypothesized, but more, it was life forces in its purest form, extremely chaotic and extremely dangerous for most life forms. Its effect depended on the Great One or Astrocetus, his real species' name, but they all had in common that they stimulated living beings to mutate, exponentially so. And also creating life if certain conditions are met. This is a very powerful ability, but it is uncontrollable. This is why for billions of years some of the Astrocetus dabbled in it and took more and more control of it, passing this knowledge from generation to generation. With this, they created the Astrodelphus, a species in their image, at least sporting some of their traits, and many more. Not all of them were a success in the space whale's eyes though. Sorry, I can't anymore. Failure. The nameless Astrodelphus became one with the universe, disappearing forever, but just before dying she gave the message Calicitas' mother left. In reality, the whole event took multiple hours. The old Astrodelphus was no more than half of a disappearing head before she was no more. The message was simple in words but contained dozens of emotions at the same time. It contained a seemingly endless amount of love for him, immense sadness for not being with him, intense shame for being a horrible mother, and pure hate for something else at the same. I love you, Calicitas. Be wary of the great void. 22. It's alive. Location, Earth. Third-person POV. It has been 1 week since the world came to learn of the existence of the superorganisms otherwise known as Titans. Let's say that the human reaction and feelings about this surprise were mixed. Some were, cool, exterminate them all, or oh my god. We're all going to die. The day of repentance has begun, and all in between. Humans are in general prideful beings that don't like to not feel superior, special, and better than other species, especially ones they consider as mere animals, very big animals but animals nonetheless, while totally forgetting that they are mere animals themselves. Also, those animals are a threat to their current status as the apex species of Earth. Not that they were especially wrong to think that at first, if extremely arrogant. Humans by nature have numerous advantages compared to other animals, including intelligence, hands with opposable thumbs, complex speeches, complex social structure, and many other characteristics also found in other animals, but humans clearly stand out. And luck, a lot of luck. Humanity on multiple occasions would have died out. On another note, the casualties were immense. San Francisco and Las Vegas were basically razed off the map. They also weren't the only populated area damaged either. This was the real casualties in the eyes of some. The human death count is just a number for them. More than 99% of the deaths were ironically directly or indirectly caused by the humans themselves. If the public knew of the existence of the Titans and their location, plans could have been made to avoid those casualties. That if they were in a perfect world where everyone was a perfect little law-abiding citizen. Now, who was to blame for this? The United States government and several other governments are also partially in control of Monarch, obviously. Though, the US government is the one with the most powers in the secret organization, so much so that they basically own it. It's mainly their problem. And it mostly happened in their country anyways, luckily. For Japan it was an empty and long evacuated city, Janjira, that was barely touched, and the abandoned nuclear plant site was destroyed by the male when he emerged from it. This mostly scientific organization was founded in secret in 1946 by Harry S. Truman in coalition with several other governments, with the purpose of hunting and studying massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, MUTOS for short, otherwise known as Titan/Kaiju. Not to be confused with the Titanus Jinshin Mushi couple, the two that were recently killed by Godzilla. That sported the same name mentioned earlier. In the States, Godzilla, while Caelicides and the two Titanus Jinshin Mushi were the prime targets. The state's government decided to try and shift most of the blame onto them, which worked for the majority of people. Throwing Monarch under the bus or absorbing it in the army were proposed by some members of the cabinet, now not members of the cabinet anymore. Deadly stair accidents were really frequent at this time of the year. For very simple reasons, the different Monarch bases are all around the world. Some countries didn't know that military-no-scientific bases were built on their ground without their authorization or knowledge. Very much illegal. And have the potential of starting in the worst case, World War III. However, they still revealed Monarch's existence to the world with the agreement of the other governments in it, such as Germany, the UK, Russia, France, and Japan. Politics. They revealed that it was an international organization that researched Titans. And what were Godzilla and the two other Titans? With plans of evacuation and rules to follow in case of the appearance of other Titans. Nothing more. The Monarch was forced to disclose to the ONU that they had a way to control the Titans, to protect said Titans and the world from a nuclear winter. True fear is something foreign to most humans, and humans destroy what they fear. Anyways, it was still a delicate and touchy subject. Caelicides. It was the name of the extraterrestrial creature that played with the moon. Many of the world leaders preferred to believe it was being controlled and was just a pet or a robot. Honestly, it was more frightening, depending on the person, but for them easier to accept in their minds than a literal god with control over gravity. Also, that was responsible for the Tower of Pisa being straight and modified with whales as the main theme. The Christ Redeemer had now become the exact copy of the statue on Mars, but with a unique mirror that made the shape of a strange whale appear in the night sky when there is a full moon, as far as they saw. Then at Las Vegas, the soldiers that attacked the space whale survived but are in a coma with more or less permanent sequelae. Surprisingly, human physiology isn't okay about trying to imitate a Beyblade. And are in mortal danger of getting killed and kidnapped by fanatic believers, at any moment. The three eyes of Caelicides appeared all around the world as if a god looked down on them from his realm. Were quite impactful. The glowing golden color and slow musical hum of the portal helped a lot. If it was a dark purple, that wouldn't have the same effect. Though the one that directly stared into the eyes most of the time didn't fare well, because of how beyond them was the being on the other side. Some did go completely bonked and fanatically obsessed with Caelicides. The most important part is the fact that nearly all the ones in possession of a cross of Cael didn't die or were only lightly injured. In total, more than 609 people without discrimination. The people next to those not having a cross also survived, increasing the count even further. The cross is a miniaturized version of the one on Mars and the main religious symbol of the belief around Caelicides. Adding to that report of supernatural events at the time around them, such as floating cars that were going to crush them, buildings falling backward, etc. It exponentially augmented the number of believers and will continue to do so. The blame of killing humans and not saving them by the USA on Caelicides was interpreted as the humans being heretics and as such receiving divine punishment. And it had quite the big backlash if the millions of death threats and multiple attempts to enter the White House were an indication. The whole belief around the divine flying space whale passed from flying spaghetti monster level to oh fuck. It freaking exists. Aha. And it can communicate. It also made every religion and belief of humanity that existed for thousands of years pass as an immense joke, a very bad joke, but a joke nonetheless. It displeased the believers of the other religions, greatly. Who tried to explain and twist things to try to illustrate what the whale was for their religion, with varying degrees of success. 3 days later, in the Monarch's base located below Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The last 2 weeks were unpleasant. One of their best assets, Dr. Mark Russell, left after the death of his son, Andrew Russell, the bloody stain on Godzilla's feet. It shook some of the members, especially Serizawa, who was like an uncle to Andrew. Yet, he didn't blame Godzilla and the Titans in general for the boy's death like his friend. One good thing is that they are now getting more funds and help. In Gillerman's opinion, he is the director of Monarch. Something good came out of this fiasco. Teams of scientists were running around all looking at the different readings of Titanus Cetus and Titanus Behemoth that reacted to the other Titan, nearly waking the other up. even if they were hundreds of meters below the surface. The responsible for the sight was a middle-aged man with a balding head, looking with his fatigued eyes at the screen in front of him. It was a call with Sarazawa. Yes. The readings are accurate, said Dr. Santos, stopping the incoming yawn. This is unprecedented. So he does control gravity, partially. But how? Muttered the head biologist from behind the screen, with fascination. All of his fatigue disappeared to be replaced with childlike curiosity. This. I do not know Sarazawa. But its brief appearance above the city greatly affected Titanus Behemoth and even slightly Titanus Quetzalcoatl 4,181 kilometers, 2597.9 mi, away. Without counting the other dozen of titans still unknown to us, he took a sip of his coffee from the cup his daughter gave him when she was 13, written on it was, Te amo papai. The two titans showed a great increase in their heartbeats as if they were scared or excited. Also, their blood test showed an increase in dopamine. Titanus B * rumble * while going to call back later, said Dr. Santo hastily, ending the call. Sarazawa, confused on the other side, only saw furniture move, as if a weak earthquake was going on. He deduced that Behemoth was trying to wake up, good thing that they have multiple ways to keep him asleep. Location, Mars. Calicitas POV. It has been 2 weeks since I came back to Mars, now renamed Selim, very self-centered, I know. I did because I can. The name of this planet given by the architects, Alan Species, was the word home in their only language. I have pondered on what happened in space, especially this great void my mom warned me about and came to one conclusion. Well, fuck. I suppose it is the third cause of my species' extinction. Making me hate it already, and it's probably tied to the Ghidorahs too. Multiplying the hate. Anyway, it is way stronger than me and I will see and search for mention of this great void. Alan didn't have anything about it, or if he did they were destroyed. Though he remembers Ghidorah talking about a void before the whole architect species killed themselves to power up the mind seal on Ghidorah, Alan being one of the failsafe if they escaped the facility. I was currently working on creating life. Olaf looked at what I was doing with curiosity and Peach was stargazing, up in the sky. As usual. I have tried these 2 weeks to shape the life force I make, with moderate success. It was harder than I would like. I could do it, but it was different than gravitokinesis even if I used it to move the life force, LF for short. Perfect control isn't needed to make a new life form, life always finds a way. But a certain level of experience and knowledge is needed to have what you exactly want, and I didn't have that level yet. I knew a lot of knowledge was lost, there is a lot of all and missing part. Unfortunate. But it was enough. I got most of the basics of this with the Astrodelphus and how to make other Astrodelphus, it was in a blueprint. I'm a 3D printer but for living beings, yay. The first organism I made was a microscopic blob of pink flesh that died immediately. I don't know if it is how I'm supposed to do it, but I need to start somewhere. One non-existent step at a time. But I improved rapidly, each day the pink blob could live longer, was bigger, was stronger, and was better. Though it was just a giant unicellular organism in the end. The Astrodelphii was infinitely more complex. Now, I am trying something different. With me were some of the remaining crystals that came from Space Godzilla, its body already completely eaten by me. Those same crystals started also to grow from my body too, they were where barnacles are usually found on whales and of the same size compared to my body. The difference is, that they were part of me. I suppose they originally were a type of symbiotic organism, it's not like Space Godzilla where I could tell the difference between the crystals and it. There wasn't any here, and I'm confident in myself and my abilities to know when I'm right. I could detach them too, and they effectively served as batteries for many things, such as LF. And they made me look even better than I already was. Back to the creation of life. It was like cooking. First I need raw materials, the different matter found in living organisms to be precise, though it depends on what you want. Here it's a pile of dead amphibians-like creatures that vaguely look like a mix between an axolotl, a rain frog, and goldfish. The base of what I want. All were recently killed by the early winter caused by Olaf's tantrum, who was slapped to the ground by me just after. Most of the cells are still alive. I made the pile levitate, then started to crush it until it became an unrecognizable mass of purple gore. I then added the crystal, then I infused it with the blue LF with the general body shape and organs I want, but in a bigger version of what they were before. Simple. I also added the part of obedience from the Astradelphus just to see the results. It should work. Don't reinvent the wheel. It seems to work, I thought with satisfaction. It started to take on the shape of a round egg, 3 times the height of a human. The egg was transparent and a body was already visible. It was like an axolotl, a goldfish, and a turtle, different from what I wanted but not welcomed either way. I was expecting an eldritch abomination to be fair. Is that a soul? Fascinating, I muttered as I analyzed what felt like a small sphere. I couldn't see it, but the gravity around shifted with the coded LF getting sucked into it and with the little heart that started to beat at the same time. It was a deduction. Soul exists or something similar because I reincarnated and this soul started to form with the first beat. And that means I directly created a soul. Cool. Dad, food? The ice titan cutely demanded, pointing his right talon, with visible hunger in his blue eyes as he stared at the egg. No, I blankly state, directly crushing all of his hopes. He looked down, his tail swinging back and forth on the grass, doodling with his left talon on the red sand of the beach. He tried to play the pity card. I said, no. If you are hungry, hunt, I repeated, this time with more firmness, increasing gravity enough for him to know who is in control, making him bow his head after I released him. Playing cute and the pity card won't work with me. At least if you try to manipulate me. Something that greatly displeases me. I let him go because he is young and mentally a child and it wasn't his intention in the first place. He just wants to eat, then he hunts himself. This is also the case for everything living on this planet, born from this planet and me. I'm the alpha, you shall obey me, I stated, then made a low repeated click with the alpha frequency. I felt it again, the satisfaction of sensing every living being no matter the species, doing the equivalent of bowing down to me. Even the unborn titan in the egg was unconsciously doing it. 23, Woman. Location, Selim, Mars. Calicitus POV. I looked from above at my creation. He was born 2 days ago after 3 weeks of incubation. He won't become the second coming of Einstein. He was not dumb, just special. He liked to glare at the purple grass very, very intensely with the equivalent of a scowl on his muzzle. As if the grass personally insulted him or he was trying to win a staring contest. Good luck, I will also lose to grass in this type of contest if it's not the grass with eyes that grow in Olaf Cave. And he was only 2 days old, still better than a useless human infant. He could improve. I might be a bit harsh, though. I named him Poyo, after the high-pitched sound he always makes when he sees me. He constantly repeated this. The meaning was unknown to me, if there ever was one, to begin with. Anyway, he was cute and obeyed me, like a trained puppy. A puppy the size of a small car but still a puppy. Not that his size mattered that much, everything that isn't half my size is small. He was currently clumsily waddling his way onto a pedal beach with his webbed feet, the back and forth of the waves behind illuminating their surroundings. It was night on this part of Selim. And the water glowed since this part of the sea was filled with bioluminescent microorganisms of all colors. His 3 sets of blue gills stood up, on full alert. He looked left and right, trying to put himself on his back legs to have a higher vision of his surroundings but failed miserably. He put himself back up. He was staring intensely with his small black beady eyes on his goofy face at what looked like the offspring of a lion and its salter and spikier counterpart of the sea. It was sleeping on the beach, unaware of its surroundings. Well, it was invisible to most, that is why I dubbed them as Shadow and the Lionfish Lion or Tasty Snack since they tasted like strawberry. And they usually traveled in packs, which wasn't the case here. A fatal error. His position was similar to that of a cat ready to pounce on his prey. His blue fish tail was swinging back and forth in excitement. Poyo opened his mouth wide, then 3 black tongues covered in poisonous spikes shouted out of his mouth at extreme speed. Ensnaring the male Shadowmane, who by now was futilely trying to free itself, then Poyo proceeded to drag it back into his mouth, swallowing the animal's whole, its new permanent home being his stomach. He then burped and smashed his head against the rocky beach until he fell unconscious. I think he is too lazy to fall asleep normally or just defective. Maybe adding a part of the pink blob in him was a bad idea, don't know don't care, I couldn't make one like him again anyway. At least for the foreseeable future. Creating life by mixing recently dead lifeforms is a bit like a gacha but more random and it doesn't make you want to commit genocide. Most of the animals that I make end up as a pile of flesh, bones, mouths, eyes, twitching limbs in too many numbers, and usual organs like the heart being outside of the body. Failure that I ate or gave to Olaf. I could do it with the flora, the result being also mixed. And also with flora and fauna mixed. It is with this that I made the grass with humans-like eyeballs that ended in the Ice Titan cave and 4 creatures that were essentially a big mouth filled with teeth on 4 chubby legs and with mushrooms on their back and a small tail. In all cases, the gene of obedience was put in them. Just in case. It was created for a reason, I assume. Even if they would have obeyed me if they could in the first place. I also discovered a fail-safe gene when I studied the Astradelphus blueprint, which can on my command, cause the cells to do autolysis, meaning they commit suicide. Killing the individual with that gene in the process. Anyway, I did other things during these 3 weeks, very productive things, such as eating, a lot of eating, teaching Olaf and Peach Braille with moderate success, and trolley playing with Olaf as a father should. Learning about the architect's culture and how they have 764 different sex, biological not how the person identifies himself. And looking over the 2 MUTOS eggs that started to fuse together, while I played with their genes. Though, I was very careful with this one. Not forgetting that I think my 3rd set of eyes is starting to form but it will take some time. 3rd person POV. 5 weeks passed but the topics around the world hadn't changed that much. The different groups and individuals in the world that believed in Caelicitas as a god started to regroup together in person or on the internet. Fights and disagreements were starting to become more and more important between them and the other major religions. Some were more extreme than others and ended with a certain number of deaths for all sides. And that is why they formed a unified front under the banner of one united religion, the Celian Collective. The supreme leader of the religion was still anonymous, but whoever it was, the person was a billionaire and extremely powerful public figure with hands everywhere. The rover Ahab is 3.5 meters, 11.5 feet, in height, 5 meters, 16.4 feet, in width, and weighs more than 2 tons. He was a miracle of technology costing billions of dollars, and months of work from the best of the best. This beauty was finally going to land on Mars. He was currently entering the atmosphere after more than a year of travel. His thermic being made with the denser atmosphere in mind. Monarch and NASA professionals were paying attention to all minute details. They were in a hidden base, somewhere in the USA. Ahab was currently on autopilot but they could still take control of it and unclench the parachutes earlier or make it change trajectory and land in the water. A man uttered in confusion as he stared at the data sent back. The rover stopped moving in the middle of the stratosphere. He called for help, and Rick arrived and started to talk. What the problem, son? He looked at everything on the screen, his face gaining a new wrinkle and getting taller with each line he read. The old man pinched the bridge of his nose and said with a hint of rage and terror, his heart was pounding in his chest, dozens of apocalypse scenarios flashed in his mind. Oh, yes, that's a fat-ass whale-sized problem we got here. Fuck, I said to destroy the dumb robot but nobody listens to old people this day. The profile of Titanus Cetus or Caelicitas as the Titan called himself changed a lot. They couldn't interpret a lot of things, the Titan could write a language known to humans, how that didn't have fucking clue. And they were still clueless about what cake and lies he was talking about or of the sentence as they had totally different meanings and they weren't the only ones. He was evidently sapient, something that is still debated in Monarch. Most of the employees recognized those Titans as godlike beings, but one that was as smart as them and that could destroy Earth at his whim was hard to swallow and accept. People all around the room started to talk in confusion about what was going on. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit said in a calm voice, "Don't worry, it must be a bug, a perturbation, or something like that." "I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation, Mr. Simmons," Rick retorted. He didn't like the guy one bit. He didn't like the mask he was constantly wearing. Haha. "We worked on it together, my friend. You're getting old." "Oh, it's a back look. Back to work, people. Advancement depends on us," Walter Simmons heartily laughed and said with a gentle smile. He was a charismatic man, showing a visage of nobility, but in truth, he was one of the worst. He wanted humans to stay the dominant species on Earth. He hated Gajira and every Titan. Certainly, the dull sparkling whale was more powerful, and he acknowledged the immense danger of this extraterrestrial abomination. It was a threat. But it was just a bigger obstacle in the grand scheme of things. Humanity will advance and sacrifice no matter the cost of human life where needed and will happen. As long as it wasn't him, that is. Apex Cybernetics, his brain baby, will advance humanity to things they would have thought possible with the use of technology. Everything getting in his path will get eliminated or will bend to his will. The CEO of Apex Cybernetics goes slightly wider. Ahab's main camera was directed at a giant monster with white fur, a beak, an ice horn on the tip of the muzzle, and a goat horn on the size of its horns. Gasps of shock were heard all around the room. "Mr. Freeze has certainly changed," trailed Rick. His gaze landed on Walter and he nervously chuckled. "On Selim, Mars. This is a cheap human device specially made to spy on us," Kalasitis lectured a mesmerized Olaf. Ahab was in his grasp. "Woman. Food?" the Ice Titan said with excitement, with a tilt of his head to the right, his gaze fixed on the strange glowing box attached to a white box, itself put on round multiple boxes, with another box attached to the side. "If you want. This one was made by I don't know if there isn't any name on it. Anyways, this metal box is a rover and it's a way for humans to see us," the Whale Titan said. He blocked every other camera on the rover with sand. Olaf made wow and purred. He walked closer to the metal box rover thing. Sat in front of it. Took it in his talon and put it in his beak and then spit it out with visible disgust. Carlasitis grabbed it and gently put it back on the ground, the wrong side. "Not yummy, Olaf, not happy. Woman tastes like, who, thingy moved, he declared with a huff. But excitement returned immediately as he saw the round dark box, the wheels move and made a strange sound he had never heard before. 24, women are stupid. Third-person POV. Obviously, it's disgusting, it's made with metal, you don't eat metal, dummy. Anyway, as I said earlier, this is a rover made by humans. Now, what are humans? Kalasitis said warmly. Golden light started to flood the entire area. Olaf closed his eyes instinctively, already prepared for this type of shenanigans. While on Earth some of the humans ended up momentarily blinded, especially the CEO of Apex Cybernetic, who nearly fell. When they looked again, all their eyes widened in awe at what was unfolding before them, though one was mixed with anger. Kalasitis then made the sand around the area hover and move it graciously as he shaped 500,000 human statues. Each one had a little green crystal floating above its head. Written in those were written a short biography in Braille. They were all in a city full of tall buildings and other infrastructures. Humans were using their cell phones, talking, walking, eating, reproducing, working, driving vehicles, basically humans doing human things. Some trees and plants could also be seen. It was a perfect example of what a metro city looks like. There were a lot of details. Everything in this manifestation was moving as if it was real life, like a simulation, but better than any simulation humans ever made or saw. And will probably never be capable of reproducing. The whole thing was also in colors, as the whale used the reflection of light to create all of the colors and the light itself, making it even more realistic. Mesmerizing everyone watching it. It was the size of 4 football fields. Olaf was walking through it, looking around with wonder. He passed his left talon through a mini skyscraper that was still taller than him, and he was amazed by how it rebuilt itself. All of this was fairly easy for Kalasitis to do, controlling billions and billions of grains of sand individually. he just needed to concentrate and adjust each minute detail. This is a modern human settlement. Most of the humans live in this cramped area for reasons. The Ice Titan nodded, he was listening attentively, his eyes alternating between the alpha and the tiny things, the humans, moving around in the settlement. This is 2 humans, the whale picked 2 statues, and the 2 started to panic as if they were real. It was disturbingly realistic for the humans watching it. They wear clothes, those things around their bodies because they can't protect themselves naturally, like us. The one on the right is a female and the one on the left is a male. They come in all shapes, colors, and cultures, but where they really shine compared to other species is in their capacity to fail and properly using their brain and their ingenuity to kill things involuntarily and deny it. Good thing the whole species is not like that. They are smaller than us, weaker than us, and their best pastime is being hostile against each other for the most absurd of reasons, most of the time ending in the death of one or both parties or more. For example, some humans believe Earth is flat and evolution doesn't exist, Kalasitis said with a hint of ridicule in his voice. But Dad. Olaf thinks the stupid. Even Poi knows the. Probably, Olaf said with incertitude. Poyo 2 kilometers away, glared at Olaf with his beady eyes looking in 2 different directions. He was scaring no one. They were on a plateau and he heard Olaf say his name, not that he understood, he glared at everything except Kalasitis. Most of the conflict stems from baseless beliefs, and that is why humans are funny. Happy to not be one of them anymore, Astrocetus all the way for whatever how long my life is going to be. The whale thought and nodded at Olaf's word. The Ice Titan was improving in his speech. Then he made the whole city and the fake life inside morph into different types of civilization, all from the past, from the most recent to the older to the most ancient of civilization. The older the civilization was, the more things tied to Titans and his species were added, all having relation to the current myth on Earth. Each civilization was destroyed with different scenarios, the modern one by a vague shadow of what looked like a giant 3-headed dragon, one by flood, one by a volcanic eruption, by a long winter, extreme drought, pyramids falling from the sky, diseases, aliens kidnapping humans before bombing the humans, etc. Most of it was bullshit on the space whale part, not that it was meaningful to him. Humans will probably fill the holes themselves with whatever madness they came up with. They are still dangerous. They are good at killing things with their main strength, technology. The rover is one of the products of this technology. Do not worry, it is harmless to us. Not like hurting you will be a good idea, he finished, with a click aimed at 3 of the rover wheels, making the 3 explode. The screen with Ahab and all of its green parts changed, the destroyed part becoming red. "Que chingados," shouted Walter Simon before getting back to his gentleman persona. Nobody noticed it due to what they just witnessed. And if they did, the rover just became unable to move, not surprising that one of the creators will be mad. Language, Mr. Simon. You see, it isn't a bug. Clap back to work, said Rick as he transferred everything to the Monarch server. Eileen Chen, Monarch's lead pathologist, will be happy about this. Titanus Cetus didn't completely destroy Ahab for whatever reason. The sand magic trick with gravity was containing an enormous amount of extremely valuable information. Which, in fact, none of them really were except the 3-headed dragon Shadow. Know that Rick knew this. 1 week later, at the start of 2014. So this is the new Titan on Mars. It looks extremely young, or is this just me? Vivian Graham, a British woman in her 30s with brown hair and green eyes, said excitedly to her sensei and father figure, Sarazawa. She recently got out of the hospital. She was incredibly lucky to only end up with 2 broken legs and 1 broken arm. She could have died crushed by one of the male MUTO or even worse, eaten alive. Just imagining it makes her shudder. But it was a part of her job. Studying those godlike beings was one of her passions. Escaping death was only a part of her job. The woman was looking at the picture of Olaf. He reminded her of a cat and lemur mixed together with a goat and a bird. It's not the only one. This one you're looking at was named Titanus Orgelmir. He destroyed Ahab after playing with it for 3 days. And yes, like Kalasitis, I think he is young. In fact, he seems like he is an infant and his overall body shape has a lot of similarities to animals. Coevolution or something else is at play. This we will probably never know. Sarazawa replied, as excited as his ex-assistant about the new titans. It's the name of an ice giant in Norse mythology, right? It's Elene who named him, right? Minus 150 Celsius on average. I can see why he was named like this. And yes, I can see that, she said as she continued to read. Ahab was pushed by the ice titan in the abyss, while the latter looked at the camera as if he knew what he was doing. And then the rover mysteriously got back on the surface. Then getting flung between him and another unknown and nameless titan that looked like an axolotl, that she found was absolutely adorable, the two broke the multi-billion rover beyond recognition. That, she couldn't care less, it wasn't her who paid and it was to be expected that Ahab would have been shredded apart. There haven't been any signals since then, without counting the numerous times when the rover became completely silent. Did we get anything significant on Titanus Cetus? Vivian asked. Sarazawa shook his head, but still typed the multiple codes to access the documents about the whale titan. As you can see, we didn't get much on the titan himself. He never let himself be seen, or when it happened he blocked Ahab, rendering it useless. But one thing is, he knows a lot of things about humanity, probably more than us. Imagine the number of things an existence like this could teach us. Look, he played the video of the sand city taken on Mars by the rover. Even if he saw it hundreds of times, it never ceases to make him go into a trance-like state. She watched it 1, 2 times, then 3 times, she breathed in and out and said gravely, there are nearly all civilizations, and some we didn't know even existed. And it looks like a cycle of death and rebirth, and a warning for the next one coming. Just like I thought, confirmed the older human. But he wasn't sure himself either. They were just making assumptions about something that was beyond them, and it wasn't their domain of expertise either. It could mean many things. 25. Is a Facebook group going to change the world? Kalacetus POV. I was currently in hyperspace. This epileptic place was fascinating. I never spent much time in it because I can live in it but not indefinitely. It is like an ever-changing and infinite three-root system that connects everything with an infinite amount of shortcuts and tunnels. This place was also constantly shifting, portals randomly appearing leading to other locations or universes. This led to the most terrifying discovery: 99.999% of the universes that I found were void of anything, complete heat, death, or broken. It means everything is inversely going to fall into entropy. Not that surprising, but the ratio of alive and dead universes I found was unusual. That's why I think something, like this great void thingy, did this, and I am leaning more on the latter. And the last 0.0001%, that was still hundreds and hundreds of universes. Those universes were like an ever-expanding sphere connected with this all-encompassing veil, the hyperspace, something out of the space-time continuum. Each universe affects the surrounding hyperspace, making it have its own unique flavor or smell, the latter being a sense that I mostly lack with how shitty it is for my species. I was going to enter one of those universes. It's not the first time I did this either, but this one seemed interesting, and time doesn't pass the same in it. In this one, 1 second is equal to 2 in my own. Not like the number AB11092202 where 1 second in it was a billion years in mine. I entered the universe with mild difficulty, as if something, a force, was trying to stop me and was visibly failing. I swam through, my entry point apparently being a galaxy, twisting my body as I looked around. Gravity was strange here, it felt, not different in its essence but imbued with something alien to me. Ironic when I'm the alien here. There was also a weird force field all around this place that immediately tried to crush my presence, and I didn't like the annoying buzzing sound it made. It was the same alien feeling that imbued the gravity here. I repulsed it with a powerful gravity field originating from my heart, making everything around me feel normal again. The force field was still trying to crush my bubble-shaped shield, the power only augmenting as time went on. I then looked curiously as 5 small golden orbs started to appear all around me, in a circle. Each orb started to morph into a humanoid shape, human-sized, wearing a black robe. They had 2-toed feet, their body was made of matter and energy, but the most remarkable aspect was their visage. Each was a mask that exhibited a different and unchanging expression. Serenity, sadness, confusion, joy, and anger. They were familiar. Are they the Force priestesses? So, I'm in this great galaxy far, far away from a long time ago. They revolved around me, faster and faster until they became a black blur to my eyes. That surprised me. My eyes are quite superior to humans after all. This is bad. I thought I wasn't panicking even if I felt that the hyperspace was getting more and more difficult to access and that the pressure on the bubble was exponentially multiplying. On the other fin, I felt a strange feeling of betrayal. It was very weak and didn't affect me in any way. They were trying to capture me, well, bad for them, I didn't want to. I made another gravity field behind the force pressing on my shield since it is what I think it is. Trapping it. I also noticed that it was now unmoving, not under their control anymore. Then I made a third above the second and expanded it. So much so that it forced the 5 to go farther and farther. They still revolved around me but slower, changing tactics. Serenity, confusion, joy, and sadness made crackling golden orbs above their heads. Anger rushed in my direction. The 4 others seemed shocked by this. She had a force barrier around her as she pierced the third shield that fixed itself just after, and I stopped her from moving anymore, the fight between her force and my gravity barely lasting 5 seconds with me winning by overwhelming her. Conclude, dependent too much on the force you are, Happen, what if there was not any, what would, Jedi code, the truth is. Emotions, unneeded are I remarked. She was like a shark in a desert of salt in the middle of a drought. Utterly fucked. 2 of the 4 momentarily froze. This period was enough for me to enter hyperspace, disappearing with one of the 5 priestesses. It's just her physical body, she must have clones or something, right? Not that it matters to me, I just wanted to say hello and they assaulted me. Feeling threatened, I only defended myself. It's not like I destroyed the balance of the galaxy or anything. And I didn't run away, it was a tactical retreat. Third-person POV. The 9 years Madison Russell browsed through the top-secret file of Monarch on her mom's laptop. Her mom never changes the codes. Her parents divorced, and her big brother died because her mom was idiotic and believed a stranger was going to protect him, not that anybody knows this but the mother in question. And Madison's mother still didn't realize that she was the one that caused his death. Or she didn't want to believe it was her. Her only friends were on the internet, she was homeschooled and her mom was like a helicopter around her. She downloaded the 2-month-old video on a USB key, named Sand City. Madison rarely had access to it due to her mom nearly using it 24/7 and especially after her stunt. Still, nobody knew it was her, she thought. Her mom drowned herself in her work on RCA while her dad preferred to drown himself in alcohol, but she still dearly loved both of them. She ran into her room with the USB key clutched in her hands and plugged it into her personal pink laptop with one moth sticker and dozens of whale stickers on it. She had whale plushies and toys all around her room with the occasional moth-themed ones. She was also raising maple tree moths. The little girl opened the laptop, put it on, and downloaded the top-secret data. She then opened Facebook and entered it. She sent messages to 3 of her friends, the __of Sauron, Techno King, and Immortal Queen, while her username is Bichichiwarex. She didn't know what it meant, she heard it from her parents when they yelled at each other and she found them stylish. This would be quite an unusual group for everyone else but her. She was only a child, as academically gifted as she may be. She didn't quite get the big picture of what her seemingly innocent actions might have. Nobody dared to point it out. Zbichichiwarex, hello everyone. I have got a new video. Look it up. Click to download. Immortal Queen, breathtaking. I can't find the words to describe it, it is simply mind-blowing. Please accept my deepest thanks, sweetie. Your contribution to our cause is extremely meaningful. The __of Sauron, as Immortal Queen said, I want to believe that real progress cannot happen without exceptional people, especially long-term, and our cause is for the future of humanity, no, Earth. Techno King, interesting. This greatly changes humanity's history as a whole and how we see it. Kalacitis as see how we repeat our mistakes and the results, he wants us to improve. Don't forget. We're running the most dangerous experiment in history right now, the entirety of the human species depends on it, do not fail our God. Punishment has already fallen upon us last year, the shadow is one of the future ones. Failure is not an option, I count on you all. Immortal Queen, indeed, dear Techno King. The underscore of Sauron, I can agree with this. Zbichichiwarex, okay guy. Sorry gotta go. Mon just bought McRonald, oh and she bought my favorite a Big Mac. See you soon. They all bid goodbye to Madison and continued to discuss and plan for the upcoming future. 26, Venus. Third-person POV. Crack. Calicitus reappeared on one of the numerous floating islands of Selim, Mars. Next to him was a bubble containing a very angry and terrified Anger. Home sweet home, the whale said, his words unheard by the priestess. Said priestess was a god, as they were quite literally part of the Force. Problem is, that the Force didn't exist in this universe. So her divine status was moot. Their names weren't trivial either, meaning he kidnapped the literal manifestation of Anger out of the Star Wars universe. It would cause great perturbation in the Force until Anger was back or her sisters revive her through backup memories, making a copy of her, a fake. It would not be ideal but better than the emotions Anger-related being muted in the whole galaxy. They also had other roles such as connecting the living force, life, to the cosmic force, and death. The two make the Force. This is evidently simplified. The Force has a will and this will is essentially fate and destiny since it controls nearly everything in the galaxy to attain its objective. Nothing happened by accident until the space whale appeared. Calicitus being out of the plan of the Force will and so by extension, the Force priestesses was perceived as a threat to be assimilated or eliminated. Normally the Force priestesses didn't manifest themselves, only in cases like Calicitus. The Force didn't do very well with the unplanned. So, she was powerless in front of Calicitus, and pretty much anything physically stronger than a pug will overpower her, her connection with Force being cut off being the reason for her current state. He then banished the gravity bubble and she fell to the ground like a turd, unable to levitate. She ended up with her head planted in the soft soil. She slowly pushed her head out of the soil, then tried to get up, failing miserably in the process, as if she never walked before. Which was the case. Come on, you have 2 legs. You can do it. Believe it, Calicitus mocked her and made rapid clicks similar to a chuckle. This seemed to anger her even more, though she was even more terrified. He made a wormhole from his location to Alan's lab in the abyss. The architect was obsessed with the abyss and the gravitational field in it. The robotic Martian centaur walked out of the wormhole, his head snapped at the priestess, studying her. He calmed himself and kneeled to his king. He then started the telepathic conversation, per usual. This is Anger, an ancient and powerful being from another universe. She is one of the direct manifestations of something called the Force, not that it matters in this universe. She will be the first prisoner of the abyss and a prisoner until further notice, from me and exclusively me, Calicitus declared. Anger was fuming on the muddy soil, her dress getting dirtier and dirtier as she was desperately trying to use the Force or even simply feel it. She is lucky to even be able to survive outside of her universe in the first place. Understood, I will do as you say, Your Majesty, Alan respectfully replied. Calicitus felt the excitement of the scientist. The architect made a bowing gesture with his torso. At the same time, he received general information from Calicitus about her potential ability, the Force, midichlorian, where she is from, and that he shouldn't for any reason enter her mind, even if she was powerless physically. Probably billions of years old hag must have 1 or 2 tricks up her sleeves. Alan already learned this lesson with his first encounter with Calicitus anyway. Do not enter the mind of a godlike being. For Descadora he had most of the other architects with him when they suppressed the Hydra 3 minds. He still had moments where he froze remembering how each individual's mind of his brethren was getting liquefied. He smiled in his mind, as he noticed that he would be able to do some tests on her, under his king's supervision. One arm with a 4-fingered hand materialized behind his back as he made the prisoner levitate while the latter trashed around her visage transfixed in the emotion of anger. Calicitus POV. It has been 1 month since Anger was in the prison I made at the deepest part of the abyss. nothing much happened. She tried to escape, multiple times, but failed each time. She had the grace of a human baby. A newborn at that. It must be humiliating and infuriating for a being like her. And I cannot fathom how scared she must be. It will be like gravity suddenly disappeared, not really comparable in terms of importance, but the idea is here. The Muto's eggs have totally fused, and a black larva was growing inside. Anyway, I was currently on the moon, and some patch of blue moss and a small swarm of grape shrimp started to develop. There was metal scrap on the moon. Humans sent satellites and they didn't like the gravity of the moon. They crashed onto it. I wrote in Braille on the visible face of the moon, "Can one know that one knows nothing, and what is infinite? It will take some time to have something really interesting alive on it." I teleported on Mars, played with Poyo and Olaf, then teleported near to the second planet of the solar system, Venus. I looked at the opaque sulfur acid-covered and dense atmosphere of Venus composed mostly of carbon dioxide. I swam through the kilometers of the atmosphere, uncaring of everything that would have killed a human 10 times over. I passed the sulfuric cloud. I clicked to map the area and there were ruins of an alien civilization between the yellow and orange soil of Venus. To my immense surprise, my two left eyes looked up and the sky was totally different than what it should be. It was like a giant broken and glitching screen that covered the yellow sky filled with more or less deadly gas to humans, with a blue sky with white fluffy clouds and an artificial sun and moons. While exploring I started to eat the atmosphere. There wasn't any magnetic field and the core of the planet was half dead. All of this happened probably less than 2 years ago. Obviously, it was also void of complex life, only unicellular lifeforms were here, which is already better than 99% of the universe. The extreme environment does not help the development of the more fragile lifeforms. The alien ruins seemed destroyed on purpose. It was not the damage of time or a natural catastrophe, and the people here must have been 3 times taller than a human on average. I stopped eating as I levitated one big piece of stone and scrutinized it with 2 of my eyes. On it was a faded painting of thousands of dragon people things prostrating themselves to an altar with something on it. Above it was golden and glowing 3 long spike-covered necks coming off somewhere. The stone was too damaged. The 3 necks respectively ended with a dragon head that possessed multiple eyes, 7 on each side for a total of 14 per head, a narrow snout covered in spike and filled with fangs. The Hydra is excessively bigger than the dragon people under, like a human compared to a bacteria. This is not good. Desghidorah is alive or it's something else that did this. But seeing the state of Venus I'm leaning on the former, I thought, remembering how he sucked out Selim's energy. I was slightly disgruntled about what they did to Venus. Frankly, it was mostly instincts. But it is possible to revive it, so it wasn't really a problem. The planet could have exploded and remaking would have been possible for me, if incredibly time-consuming. After this, I was trying to find any other information. Knowledge is a form of power and power is power. Millions of debris were lifted and observed from all around Venus, but I gained not as much as I would have liked. With this, I learned from sculptures and paintings that the main species living here weren't native to Venus, they were technologically ways more advanced than the current humans. That this species was under the Ghidorahs since they apparently were made by them, and that the Astrocetus were seen as abominations, devils, and monsters by them, for short the mortal enemies of the Ghidorahs. I was indifferent to that thought. Inferior lifeforms' opinion is irrelevant as long as they don't act upon it, which they probably will. They were also drawings of various titans as if they were an army. The now dead Space Godzilla was in it. The gigantic golden Hydra painted is also probably this great void, and it looked like they were summoned. This means multiple things. First, they weren't here, in this universe that is, because they ate universes and I would be dead otherwise. The good thing was that they needed the help of second or more parties to enter a universe. The bad thing is, that I didn't know how to stop it, even if violence would probably work, and I didn't know how to locate nor how the whole thing worked in the first place. Sadly, most of the things were gibberish or simply destroyed. I couldn't read their language, and I know that I have many holes in my current knowledge about many things. I'm not omniscient. 27, a mysterious and strange book. Third-person POV. On a stage, in front of hundreds of cameras, and journalists. It was also lived on all social media and platforms. Millions of humans from all around the world were watching this. And half of them were recently bought by the boss of Facebook for unknown reasons. Of course, this displeased some people, but did the reptilian care? No, it was for the Earth's future, something more important than some teenager tantrum zero. On this stage stood a Caucasian middle-aged man with brown hair and brown eyes. Around him and hidden in the crowd were hundreds of mercenaries, all fanatical believers and part of the Celian collective, ready to protect the current supreme leader of the religion at any moment and any cost, even their own life. For very simple reasons, he will reveal information that many would prefer that they had stayed hidden. Such as the video sent by Zbichichiwerex. He didn't know her personally and thought she was a teen or young adult behind her internet facade. He didn't know how she got that information, but they were real and that was what mattered. They preferred to wait 2 months before they revealed the video to the world to prepare everything. The man on the stage was dressed in a golden suit. Embroidered on its front was a triangle with the constellation of the whale in the middle, and all over the suit symbols of whales were present. Hello, people from all over the world. You must already know me, I won't reintroduce myself, he said heartily with a light chuckle in his Tesla Micro. He then made a T-pose, and 1/3 of the crowd responded by doing the same. He didn't do any sign languages. Dozens of teams were working in real time, translating into different languages and sign languages. To affect a maximum of people. Around the man's neck was the cross of Kale, and another BLS with the symbol of moon, and the same symbol was embroidered on his suit. Today I want to show you something, he declared, spreading his arms as he walked to the left of the stage. The wall, not the giant screen behind him, turned from black to white, then to a photo of the current Mars, Selim, taken with the newly developed technology of Tesla sold to Monarch. The crowd gasped in shock. On Mars, there was a lot of water, so much so that it looked like Earth, but the land mass was arranged differently and it was not all green, they were blue and purple, which added to the beauty of the planet. This is the planet that we humans call Mars. Yes, that might surprise you, but this is the same red planet. Then the screen changed to images of the moon with different data. The crowd gasped in shock yet again. The moon was different. Only a bit of plant life was found, but there was an atmosphere dense enough to matter and liquid water. Same as the red planet, life is developing. You might ask yourself, how is this possible? As a man of science myself, I can confirm with certainty that this is due to the divine intervention of our God, Kalasitis. He brings life. The screen changed again. A video started to play, the one given to them by Expichiwar, aka Madison Russell. For the duration of the video, there was absolute silence in the audience, but the reactions were more explicit on the internet and with important figures such as the President of the USA, who spitted his tea as he heard from his hidden headset about what was happening in the country of freedom. He excused himself. Queen Elizabeth II only chuckled at his reaction. As if she knew what happened and knew she did. Back in the USA. This is an endless cycle of death and rebirth for humanity. Kalasitis has known humanity since our first civilization, one that we, the most powerful race, didn't know until now. The sarcasm was clear in his voice and body language. This offended a lot of people. One mother on Twitter was already insulting Elon Musk by every name, and she wasn't the only one, but they were as many if not more defending him and their god. Do you all remember one of our god's first sentences? The cake is a lie. And our current society is this cake, a lie made by the old generation and their parents, the parents of their parents, and kept until now. The future generations will also act this way. We like to be stagnant. Some tend to think that, it's old so it must be true, and I think that people that continue to say this need to be set on the right path. A faint smile appeared as he heard the feedback from his headset. We hide what we do not like by saying it doesn't exist, using censure, or fear it, like racism, homophobia, transphobia, and I could continue on like this for multiple weeks, no, more like years. Humans are fascinating, right? But we aren't here for this. These problems will take time and effort to solve, and everyone will need to work on them. I know the world of humans is not ready for this. But it is needed. He walked back and forth, sometimes stopping to search for simpler terms. Humanity will soon enter an age of change. We are not the dominant species anymore. We never were to begin. Another example of cakes, something sweet while it lasts but ultimately fake, he said, a gesture of his hand that made the screen change to see everything that the whale wrote, even the two new sentences. Kalesitas sent us a warning, something grave will happen and we must be ready. May you join the Celian collective, and even if you don't, the divine whale is always watching. I bid you goodbye, he finished with a T-pose. More than half of the audience cheered while the rest murmured, most angry, feeling insulted, and the ones that were part of Monarch were alarmed by the fact that there was still an intruder among them. This new religion vexed many. Elon then walked away, ignoring the pesky journalists with their more often than not retarded questions. He needed to move fast. Prison was far from where he wanted to go or had a surprise stair accident. On the other side of the globe, a pudgy, one-armed man was scoffing at the American words that were directly translated to him in Korean. He could understand English, but why should he bother or even listen to this primitive language? He heard it too much already in his youth. He was seated in front of his personal desk, something made for a god, made with the finest wood and metal by the most talented of people. An invaluable piece of art. He absolutely harbored this stupid cult that was believing in a monster, the monster who stalls his arm. He also hated Godzilla and the other titans, but to a lesser extent. Though, he was smart enough to understand their danger. His declaration of war on Mars was made hastily, but what's done is done. He passed for an idiot to the entire world, but it was like he always acted like that. You underestimate people you think are stupid. He was bred and raised to be like this. He was always right anyways. Slav people, yes, people saying the contrary will be eaten alive by his rabid dogs, and this is when he felt merciful, which happened every 30th of February. He culled the advancement of this cult in his beautiful nation. It was easy since his country was one of the most isolated in the world, and he held an iron fist on the populace and everything going in and out. A servant walked into his office. He didn't react as he knew what she was bringing. Behind her were dozens of guards. However, he was getting excited. In her hand was a strange book. It seemed old and mesmerizing to every human around it. The dictator resisted the urge to jump at it. On the cover were 3 golden heads intertwined together. He blinked as he thought he saw them move. There also was a strange circle made of multiple triangles with an unknown language around it. As agreed, Mr. Kim Jong-un, the woman spoke in perfect Korean, and placed the book on the table. Her eyes became reptilian for the briefest of moments. This was unnoticed by the dictator, and she was running out of time. She then walked out. She walked faster and faster, and her skin started to peel off. In its place were blue scales. While on the other side of the mansion the half-devoured and skinned body of a young woman could be seen. The head was missing. The gardener will have a surprise. Stupid ape, she muttered with contempt in a deep male voice and an alien language composed of hiss and growl, imperceptible to the human ears. She was one of the Exif, a species modified long ago by their beloved god of destruction. They were on Venus not long ago. They were similar physically to those humans before, hence their current appearance as humanoid dragons. The Exif didn't know it. It was only now that they were authorized to start the summoning, a long process and complicated that could take between 5 years to 200 years. The longer the process, the better the result. The reason they weren't authorized was simple. The rest of the Ghidorah didn't want their progenitor, Void Ghidorah, to be here. They judges that he was better left alone in this horrifying dimension of madness where time and space were meaningless. This lovely place fueled with the despair of their victims was specially made by the Astrocetus, and it served as a prison and anchor. Ghidorah might have overreacted and might attract the ire of the others when they learn of what he did, and he wasn't surprised to start it either, not the Exif knew. The summoning can still be interrupted anyways. 28. A world leader's secret hobby. Kalesitas POV. I was looking through a portal at the screen of a smartphone. It was in a place where there was a good connection. I was using a tactile pen to utilize the phone. This smartphone that I stole. No. I borrowed it without his permission and for an undetermined period from the president/dictator of a country where vodka is water and bears are pets, otherwise known as Russia. Unlocking it was annoying since Vladimir is a paranoid little human. I can understand why. But it's not like an alien is going to stall his phone. Oh yes. I'm an alien and I borrowed his phone. He was currently sleeping with a pillow of himself in his grasp. It's one of those otaku pillows with usually anime characters in the form of an underaged girl more or less nude on it. I didn't know Russian but I learned it extremely fast, same for the other human written languages available on the internet. They were all so simple to me. At the moment I know English, French, Latin, German, Norwegian, Chinese, Spanish, Hindi, Portuguese, Japanese, Korean, Arabic, and 4 dozen more. This needs to be shared with humanity. Even if my minds were forever tainted in the process, I righteously decided. Vladitan had a peculiar hobby, I discovered it while browsing through his photo gallery. He cosplayed a multitude of magical girls. Hundreds and hundreds of pictures dressed in colorful costumes of all kinds, even bunny girl outfits. There were also dozens of videos where he danced and sang while also cosplayed as famous magical girls. All of them were 100% real. Those pictures and videos were showing most of his body. The rest left little to the imagination. I need bleach for my 4 eyes, no, something more powerful. Frankly, it didn't faze me. I posted them. On the 27th of May, 2014 at 5:43 p.m. Moscow hour. Vladitan's hidden side has been revealed to the world. And no matter what he will do or try to do to stop it, it will be in vain since I posted them via his different accounts that I changed the name to Vladitan the Magical Girl. He was too prideful to say he was hacked as an excuse, and even if he did, the damage is already done. I'm not gonna lie, I was exactly searching for this kind of thing. To see what strange things people this powerful do in their pastime. Just to see that they also sometimes do things they like but are not proud of. I frankly didn't care about the hundreds of Russian nuclear warheads illegally placed and hidden all over the world and ready to fire at any moment. Or that Kennedy assassination was orchestrated by the KGB, Vladitan knowing this since he was part of it. That top secret information was more or less worthless to me since revealing them will only end in a global nuclear war, and dead toys aren't funny. If I want to end humanity, humanity will end. Their entire existence is in my fins. I also discovered that the religion in my name, the Celian Collective, is way more popular than I imagined. It already has officially practically 1 billion believers and likely more than are hiding it. It was a holy war between the different religions and it entangled politics and other beliefs. My little video somehow ended on the internet, Elon Musk being the one to reveal it to the world. I wonder if he also wants to go to Selim, Mars. Surely going into the abyss and going up from the lowest level will count. I think I will do that to the one stupid/brave enough. I discovered that North Korea declared war on Selim some time ago. Good for him. I don't care about his insignificant existence. Speaking of Selim, I wrote in Braille on the moon that it was the planet's name and not Mars. By the way, Selim means the sky and heaven. I didn't even try Rule 34, I'm an underaged calf after all, and humans are degenerate. What are they going to do when they see the other titans? Only their horny minds know. Godzilla must already be popular. Good thing the grand public doesn't know about my body. I will make a rule that they shouldn't even do it, but I know some will still do it even if it costs their lives. I cannot imagine how a celebrity must feel to have porn made about him, her, but it mustn't be a pleasant experience. Some must be into it though. Archive of our own, 90% smut with every fetish you might ever imagine. They love to use celebrities. I deleted every important piece of data on the phone, replaced them with Rickroll, and changed all of his alarms with the song of Edward Kill. The famous Trololo. I then placed the phone back. I didn't steal his phone, I'm not a bad whale. Though I still permanently borrowed half of his nuke, I want to taste one. Anyways, Vladitan won't be the only one where his secret will be revealed. I teleported above an empty floating island. It was only covered in blue grass and rainbow mushroom. The flock flew around my body in 2 distinct swarms. They were going to hunt on my order. I took one of the smaller ones and also weaker nuclear bombs and crushed it with my tongue. It didn't detonate as a nuclear bomb require a precise orchestration of event to do so. I wasn't going to eat it otherwise. And I can easily stop the mechanism anyways. It tastes like vodka, but more radioactive must be the plutonium and polonium. Not bad, I muttered as I gobbled another one. Wonder what the ones from other countries taste like. I was here because I sensed the egg move. For the several months, since I saved them, I played with my capacity to create life. I can't change organisms with a soul already, the eggs however didn't have souls formed, but now they are merged and a soul has formed. Meaning, that I can't modify it anymore unless I kill it and remake it from its fresh corpse. But I will more likely than not end up with an unrecognizable pile of flesh that only thought will be pleading me to end its miserable existence. I opened the earth below me like a lid and in the middle was the egg, modified to be loyal to me and only me and dozens of other things that can let me kill it if it somehow betrays me. Paranoid but better safe than sorry. Inside this 17-meter tall, 55.7 feet, translucent egg was an insect larva with a black chitinous back and orange chitinous underbelly, 3 pairs of black scythe-shaped limbs, and a big pair of orange mandibles accompanied by multiple black pairs of mandibles. It had 3 pairs of white compound eyes, its head was covered in small and soft orange and black horns. It was completely white the last time I saw it. I was pleasantly surprised by this. The larva wiggled happily in my presence and made little squeals of excitement which I answered with whistles and clicks. "Good to see you again, little one," I greeted the squealing larva. I levitated one of the weaker warheads in front of the egg. I carefully twisted the metal of the warhead and let the plutonium and polonium pour out on the egg. The egg was rapidly absorbing the extremely radioactive matter and the larva inside made delighted high-pitched squeaks before falling asleep. This seems to work. Hope the larva doesn't end up like Pollo, I thought as I closed the island like a box. Pollo was a case of his own. He recently decided that the grass with eyeballs was not his enemy anymore but the sun now was, and so he burned his eyes glaring at the star. They rapidly healed back, leaving no scars, and he glared again. These in an infinite circle until smelled food, me or the other 2 titans. It is in order of priorities here. 29, Big Monkey. Third-person POV. It's been 2 months since the secret of the most powerful Russian has gone viral and 4 weeks since the said man hasn't been seen or heard of. Well, Russia has effectively lost a big part of its credibility and half of its total nuclear power. The last tidbit of information was kept secret and was making the Russian government higher up in military panic, to say the least. More than 2,000 warheads have gone poof. As if a god decided that. Most believed this, and it was the only explanation that could explain this. Even from the head of government of other countries. Scandal and politics, a headache. Anyway, Earth didn't stop spinning on itself because of this. Those data just became memes that will forever stay on the internet to traumatize future generations. On Selim the egg had hatched 1 month ago. He named the larva Janet, for the simple reason that he used wasp-like animals to modify the Muto's egg. The name can still change, though. On one of Skull Island's numerous creeks, a giant bipedal gorilla could be seen throwing a tree half his size at the insolent ball of plasma otherwise known as the sun as if he was an Olympic javelin thrower. He protected his eyes with his left hand to look at the tree whisking through the air at half the speed of sound, on its way to the sky, the target being the sun. Situated behind him on a log was a deaf 4-year-old little girl, his friend. The little girl Jia Andrew was making a small doll with the plant life in her surroundings. It was starting to look like her much bigger friend, King Kong. She stopped what she was doing and looked up, the doll in making escaped her grasp. Both of the young primate's eyes comically bulged out as a strange circle formed just in front of the sun. At least from their point of view, it looked like this. Golden light started to pour out of the circle. This circle is a wormhole made by a certain space whale. And the golden light was emitted by this whale eye. The air literally became heavier as the tree stopped in midair, centimeters away from touching Calicitas' eye. It would not have pierced if it wasn't stopped. A pointed steel beam with a bit more power would have been able to go through the first 2 meters of Calicitas' cornea. Calicitas blinked, he found Skull Island, and what a welcome party he got. He was amused and knew the ape wasn't at fault. The air suddenly became normal again and Jia took a big gulp of air and coughed a little bit. She was perfectly fine but in complete shock and also awe at the golden eye. The coughs made the young alpha of Skull Island wake up from his daze. He was going to beat his hairy chest with his fists and roar at whatever the things above were. But stopped himself as his instinct screamed at him to not do that. He didn't understand it. It seemed harmless. Yes, it can make trees fly, but he can do the same. What stopped him was the instinctual respect and fear he had for this being. Kong didn't understand it, and that greatly angered him, his nostril flaring up. Jia felt his anger through their bond and hugged his comparatively gigantic feet, calming the bigger primate down. She felt that they were safe. She didn't know how, but the things above didn't want to harm them, at least at the moment. Of course, she was scared. Blue particles exited the wormhole and twirled around the floating tree, then an unfinished doll on the grass before it floated, then a blue feather that was in her hair with a strand of hair followed by a strand of Titanus Kong's black fur without both noticing it. Both the roots. Dr. Eileen Andrews, a Monarch scientist, came out from behind plants, breathless, and ran to her adopted daughter. The equipment at all the outpost was going bonkers without any apparent reason, and that made her instantly worry for Jia. Something was happening on the island. The British woman's entire body and mind froze, her face paled as she gazed at the golden eye behind the wormhole. She knew the being the eyes belonged to. The eye, full of intelligence, then slightly moved and directly looked in her direction for half a second, and she felt that was the longest half a second in her entire life. Titanus Cetus, why, how, what, she muttered, nearly falling to her knees. Ow, she mumbled as she felt a sharp but brief pain on her scalp. Cetus also took strands of her hair with the roots. He wasn't very delicate with her, though. She is the only adult present, and it was only hair. What is it doing? She said. Everything that was levitating started to get compressed and mixed together. It then started to softly glow blue for 2 minutes before a green opaque egg appeared when the glow dissipated. It was slightly bigger than an ostrich egg. Cetus happy with the result. He gently levitated the egg to the ground. The green egg then immediately started to grow thin roots on the soil contact. The two humans and the great ape were also looking at the strange egg. Kong tried to stop himself from crushing it, and he succeeded. What can two humans mix with another primate, an unknown bird, and a tree that looks like the hybrid between a pine tree and palm tree, do? The space whale thought from Selim, Mars. Poyo. Puyuyu. Cetus heard Poyo bellow him exclaim in curiosity. The whale then made a wormhole only big enough to fit in the axolotl titan head. Poyo squealed and immediately pushed his head through the wormhole, as if the risk of losing his head was totally unimportant, which it was. Most of his brain was in his shell. And so Poyo's goofy face appeared from midair on Earth. He was drooling. The strange pink things seemed tasty, but he couldn't get past his head to his immense confusion, and they were out of reach from his tongues full of teeth. Of course, that didn't go unnoticed, but it was less shocking compared to Cetus and the sudden apparition of an egg by space whale magic. And now Titanus Venerabile, bloody hell, Dr. Eileen Andrews answered, and her left eye twitched. She had already abandoned trying to understand. At least Jia wasn't in imminent danger if Titanus Cetus's behavior is as they suppose. Which didn't really mean anything, but it at least made her stress less. At least it looked cute, which is the reason behind its name, and this, she understood why. Though the way its black beady eyes, void of anything but hunger, were looking in two different directions was incredibly unsettling. Her intention was brought back to the egg, as it was cracking. Everyone also looked at it. Crack crack asterisk asterisk crack asterisk. A green head covered in plant-like green fur popped out, and on its head was a tuft of blue feathers, and two big fluffy ears. It sported on its face a black beak with two big and round brown eyes. It was the size of a bowling ball. K Tolu Meta, the things coming out of the egg said in a high-pitched voice, its gaze falling on Eileen. I see you. The woman in question was already at her wit's end, and her only thought at the moment where. Don't look at me. She was slowly making her way to Jia. The hatchling gaze followed her, and it said in this same high-pitched voice, Ka. Mine. That really looks like a Furby. Okay, so I can also influence the result like this. Or it's still totally random, meh. The whale noted this, taking Poyo's head out of the wormhole, and then he banished both. On Earth, King Kong breathes an immense sigh of relief. He felt his whole tense body relax. 2 seconds later another wormhole appeared, and 3 nearly adult skull crawler was seen disappearing in this same wormhole. One was going to become food/host to a very hungry larva. And the other 2 will also become food but to Calicitus. The 3 were pretty much already living corpses. 30. A new pair of eyes. Third-person POV. King Kong stared at the strange and disturbing creature that was created by the golden eye. It smelled like him, Jia, Eileen, a bird, and the tree he was throwing earlier. He looked down at Jia, who also looked up, and he signed to her that the creature smelled strange. 3 days later. Yes. I'm sure of what I saw. I wasn't stung or bitten or ate something that made me hallucinate. I dearly wish it was the case, Eileen said, exhausted, her phone clutched in her hand close to her ear. She was talking to one of the higher-ups about the current situation. The anthropologist was currently in one of Monarch's outposts on Skull Island close to one Iwi settlement. The event 3 days ago was still affecting her. She didn't inform Monarch the same day because she simply couldn't. So she was forced to wait 2 days until everything was fully operational again. The creature made by Titanus Cetus had quite literally shaken the mind of Monarch scientists who learned the news. Of course at first they didn't believe her, and many still don't. But she had photos, sounds, and videos recording of the specimen. It was for the moment nameless, but it always made those ka-dawe. Me genius, while turning itself with its creepy feet that looked too human. She also had multiple samples of feathers, fur, eggshells, and saliva, but she didn't have the necessary equipment at the moment, and even if she did, she wouldn't know how to do it either way without messing up. She isn't a geneticist. Sadly, Eileen didn't have a video of the moment the chimera was created, but the event for sure made her rethink if the Celian Collective were really insane to worship the Titan as a supreme deity. Calicitus created right in front of her eyes. Humans could also do this, but there was no comparison. Religions and worships around Titan are pretty common in human history. The Iwi tribe treats King Kong as a god, for example, but there is a god and god. The report she sent this morning was Island Andrews, from Skull Island Outpost 3. Discovery of specimen, dubbed Dawe. This creature click TOC. Height, 15.4 centimeters, 6.06 inches, no sign of growth since hatching. It was created through an unknown process by the Titan, Titanus Cetus, whose eye appeared through a wormhole 2 days ago between 4:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. and stayed approximately for 10 minutes. The Titan disappeared and took with him 3 young adult specimens of Cranium reptant, skullcrawler, for unknown reasons. Apparition of Titanus venerabile, Poyo, via a wormhole shaped by Titanus Cetus. The specimen has a pattern in the sound it makes. It has a certain level of consciousness and self-awareness. It doesn't eat or drink like an animal, and it seems to be biologically similar to a plant in that aspect. End of report. Eileen Andrews. Understood. In 24 hours a team will be here and I need to prepare everything, she said before ending the call. She turned her head and screamed bloody murder as Dawe was staring right into her eyes from the window. Then it crawled away but was caught by Jia, who ran away somewhere with it in her hands. The creature made a squeaking sound which fell on deaf ears as she continued to run. I'm going to sleep, she said to herself. She was creeped out by the creature. It was always watching. Calicitus POV. The skullcrawler tasted like roasted eels with a touch of spice. They could talk but most were gibberish, and the only thing meaningful they said was how hungry and how much they wanted to eat everything. That must suck to be one of them. Lucky me I didn't reincarnate as one. Having a constant and endless hunger that renders you insane and can make you become a mindless beast. My minds are the most important thing to me, losing it is the same as dying for me. Anyway, that's their problem, not mine. Janet, the larva, absolutely loved its new housing. It could control the skullcrawler that was obviously still alive. I put it unconscious before putting it where the egg was. The larva hatched 2 minutes later and the rest is history. That is why Janet could be seen slithering in its new meat suit. 1 month and a half passed like this, with me doing round trips between Selim, Earth's moon, Venus, and Mercury, trying to bring life to the last 2. Mercury was more or less unlivable, simply too close to the sun. The surface of the planet is a lost cause unless I changed where the planet was in the solar system, which is a very bad idea, since it can cause unwanted consequences. That is why I molded with my gravity the inside of its crust, making giant caves where conditions for life are met, and my simple presence with those conditions already made life appear. It's still extreme for most life forms though. All of the fauna and flora, which wasn't much to be fair, were using iron in their biology, much like the volcano snail on Earth. Mercury's total weight is 70% composed of iron after all. Venus was seeing the apparition of what, but the water must have a high concentration in sulfur though. The magnetic field that was absent before was now present, serving as a shield, same for the atmosphere that was less filled with CO2. Still too hot for liquid water, which is why it got the same treatment as Mercury, but this one will have life on its surface. I flapped my 4 front fins, swimming higher close to where Sealam's atmosphere became the nothingness of space. I paused and took in the beauty of space. It never ceases to amaze me how incredible it is. With my eye, I could see the different constellations, stars, astral bodies, nebulae, and galaxies. It was for most the image of the past, light taking time to move. Those galaxies and places that humans will never go to, which wasn't the case for me. I continued to swim, taking speed until I was out of Mars's magnetic field. I then put myself into orbit. I was here because I felt this itch just behind my second set of eyes. It had been itching like this for the last 2 months, and it got worse today. I closed my eyes as I felt the energy in the crystals on my body start to fill my body, and the itching was slowly replaced with a warmth that soon turned into something hotter and hotter. Then it totally disappeared. While like this I didn't feel time pass, it was like I was half asleep or drunk. I opened my 4 eyes again, then 2 more opened on instinct, disorienting me for half of a millisecond. This is nice. Oh, and I was like this for 3 weeks, I thought, instinctively and immensely pleased with my new set of eyes. I didn't feel particularly different from before. I could feel dark matter easily. It was easier to control, and I was certainly bigger, but that doesn't affect me much since I'm constantly growing. I currently must be more or less 235 meters, 770 feet, in length. I stopped using the human arm's length or HAL. First, it's based on Kim's arm, and that is all the reason necessary. As if I needed a reason in the first place. I don't use the freedom unit for obvious reasons, such as why would I use the length of the feet of a human king that died long ago as a unit of measurement when the rest doesn't follow a set of rules that actually make sense. That's plain silly. Plus I don't have feet. That's why when I discovered the owner of the arm I snatched a 1-meter metal ruler from a random math teacher in France and gave him a copy made of pure platinum that I made look exactly the same. It might be a precious metal to humans, but for me, it's arguably trash. It doesn't even taste that good. The metric system, while not perfect, is better in my opinion, and as a human I used it. Why change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I disappeared with a crack of space, passed by the hyperspace, and reappeared with a crack above the glowing ocean of Sealam, filled with bioluminescent organisms. I clicked to announce that I was back, then I teleported again, this time just above Janet, and it was finally time. On the husk of a skullcrawler's corpse was an insect, a giant insect.